Welcome to the Diva Smells Like Money podcast. I'm your host, Suzan Chin-Taylor, CEO and founder of Creative Raven, the firm that helps wastewater industry contractors and manufacturers unlock the power of digital marketing, AI, and PR to boost sales and opportunities. Whether it's through our online marketing and lead generation programs or providing a fully outsourced marketing department, we are passionate about helping businesses in the wastewater and civil infrastructure sectors not just survive, but thrive in today's digital world. Each episode, I'll be bringing you expert tips and strategies to help you grow and succeed. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Diva Smells Like Money podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of visiting with Andrew Marshall, who is the sales director for North America for Bravo Systems. And this is a very unique, not a new technology, but being adapted in many new ways for the US market. It's been in Europe for a while, and they have now brought this technology to the United States. And I was really excited to bring it here on the show because I happened to see it firsthand at the recent WWETT show in Indianapolis. And I was just absolutely fascinated by what this company is doing, how they're making this accessible, and no spoiler alerts, but how they're making this technology a great entry port for those who might want to be thinking about dipping their toe in the world of trenchless rehab for small diameter pipelines, not using the traditional felt and resin methods that we've all, or ambient cure that we've been used to. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. So very excited to be on.
Tell us a little bit about, maybe a history on Bravo, but I guess I think I'd like to set the stage for this is maybe to explain a little bit about how, maybe we could do that contrast to compare of traditional lining and what that involves. And then what we're going to be talking about today and how those two differ. And then we'll get into a little bit of the benefits and capabilities.
Perfect. Yeah. So just a little bit of background about Bravo Systems. So we are headquartered in Kaiserslautern, Germany, which is in the southwest portion of the country. Some Americans may know it because the next town over is Ramstein Air Force Base. So there's 100,000 people in Kaiserslautern, and there's 50,000 U.S. service members at Ramstein Air Force Base. So it does attract quite a few Americans. We started out actually doing the lining for our parent company, which is KOB, who makes medical bandages. So they had some issues of pipes. Their pipes were leaking and they had an issue, and they didn't have anybody who could come in and rip out the pipes. So they thought of how can we make this work? And they had a lot of bends and a lot of transitions in their internal pipes in building. So they said, well, we know the CIPP industry is starting to take off, and this was about 25 years ago. And they said, okay, let's see if we can make these ourselves that would be more flexible. So that is how Bravo Liner came about. And I think that's majority of people who are in this industry, at least for the lining, at least are aware of what Bravo Liner is. We are universally known as the most flexible liner. It's designed to go around bends. It's designed to go around transitions. And when it comes to small diameter, that's really our specialty. So our liners really, we go up to 16 inches, but our real specialty is in that 2 to 6 inch range, and right, especially if there's bends or transitions. Obviously, in about 2019, 2020 is when the UV market started to grow globally. We looked at it and went, this doesn't sound like something that's going to work. We've been very successful in hot cure, so steam and hot water curing, as well as ambient curing resin, especially in buildings. And so we saw how the market was growing after a year or two and said, you know what, this is something that is going to take off just because of the way the systems work and the reduced stress level that you get out of UV. So, and I can go into a little bit more detail on that, but essentially we started building a system. So ours is called the Bravo Magnavity. The initial one was the Bravo Magnavity. Now it's the Bravo Magnavity SX. The main difference is the length of the liner, but we started out working in something that needed to be flexible because it needed to be able to cure our liners. And our liners, as I said, are most known for being flexible with transitions and bends. So we came out with this system that it started out as 50 meters. Now it goes to 60 meters, which is the hose length, and that's 196 feet approximately. And the way it works traditionally to get that UV head into place is there had to be two options. One is you had to have access at both ends so you could pull that light train through. Which was a challenge for in building or laterals because sometimes you don't have access at the street. You don't want to dig at the street or into the after the property line because then you have to get the municipality involved. Right. Or if you're doing it in building, you have to make two holes in the wall. And ideally the strategy is to do this. So we wanted to make sure one access point was kind of the start and then the flexibility. So there's a couple of different ways that manufacturers have gone about this. The traditional method has been to push the LED head into place. So you start at one axis, you shoot the liner in. If you're using calibration hose, if you need to, you shoot the calibration hose. So you have to deflate the system, reinflate the system as you shoot the calibration hose in, and then you push the light head in, typically using PEX pipe. Anybody who's used PEX pipe, it's great when it goes straight. But if you have to go around bends or you have to, that's really where it can become a little bit of a challenge, especially with, as I'm sure everybody in this market is familiar with, guys don't always take the best care of the equipment. They may be in a rush. They're shoving it in. So that PEX pipe has the chance, and I won't say it's often, but it does happen, to kink. So we looked at that and went, that's, with the bends that we want to be able to do with the Bravo liner, that may not be the best way. So what we came up with is the magnet. So the Magnavity, that's where it comes from. And it's an electromagnet inside the LED head. So the way the system works is if you can actually do it without calibration hose, you can just do a tail piece. So glue like a 3-foot piece of calibration hose on. You can do it with a closed end, or you can do it with a full length calibration. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility. And what you do is you actually tie a metal cup. So it's using Kevlar rope inside that calibration hose that you tie onto a metal cup. And as you're inverting the liner, so you start shooting the liner, when you get halfway down, so it's halfway installed, you stop the process. We have something that attaches to the front of an existing drum, or we have a drum in Europe and in the US that you can use without it. Stop it. You hold the air pressure in the line, which is very important for vertical stacks as well as for heavy infiltration. You attach that metal cup to the end of the LED head. Another person uses the touch screen to turn that electromagnet on, close up the system again, reintroduce air, and continue on with the inversion. So that LED head is actually pulled into place during the inversion process using the air that you're already putting to invert the liner.
So that makes it a bit of a game changer, because one of the things that, I hear with your traditional liner, is gym sock and inflating it and ambient cure, yep, is that there's a lot of room for error, and you've got to hope that things go well. And if I'm understanding what you're saying here, is that this eliminates a lot of that chance for things going wrong.
So that UV in general, UV and LED cure technology definitely has made it way less stressful for the installer. So traditional methods, hot water, ambient, steam, they're all two-part component chemical. So you have to mix the chemical, you mix it, you stir it with a double paddle mixer because you don't want to introduce air, because obviously that increases the reaction. But that's a chemical reaction that's happening. So that chemical is going to get hard no matter what you do. Right. There is no stopping that clock. You pour it into your liner, you run it through your roller table. If you do it on site, that's fine, but then you're dealing with the elements. If you do it at the shop, if you're close enough, you have to factor in that transportation. So there's different options for those guys in terms of how long of working time you have, because it's a trade-off, right? It's working time versus curing time. So the more working time you have, longer the curing time is. So that's where guys are start introducing heat started with ambient, start introducing heat. So hot water and steam, which kicks off that reaction faster. With UV, you don't have that issue. So you can actually wet this out a day in advance. We do up to a week in advance that you can wet out this liner as long as you keep it out of the sun and you keep it out of the away from that LED headlight, that resin's not going to kick off. So it gives you, for all intents and purposes, unlimited working time. So when things inevitably go wrong on site, who knows, your compressor, you guys forgot to fill up the compressor with gas, or the air hose blows, or something goes wrong on site. With the traditional methods of the ambient and hot curing system, you're scrambling. You got to fix that problem really quickly, or you pull the liner, you chuck it, and you start over again, which is wasted material. With the UV, you have that ability to problem solve. I've had guys call me on site, or when they're on site, and say, "Hey, Andrew, I've got a problem. This is, I think the best example that I had was last week is my camera's a little blurry. I'm struggling to see because I don't have a ton of power. I can't really see if I've got the head all the way out." So what we did, troubleshooting over the phone, is they got their push camera out. They opened up the line. They pushed that camera head all the way down. It was 86 feet. Say, okay, cool. I can see the head is out of the liner. Perfect. Let's pull that head back, reattach it, turn the air back on, and now we know we're all the way down. We're going to cure the end of the liner, and they started their retraction process. So if you're doing that with traditional methods, maybe you have time to do it, maybe you don't, but with the UV, you do have that time. So that's really where the stress level goes down for a lot of these guys, is you don't have to worry about the resin kicking off on its own in 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever the working time is for the resin that you're currently using.
Well, I also understand there's a camera involved. So the camera is actually able to validate that the liner has been set in there correctly. There's no wrinkles, there's no sags before you begin that curing process. And so, that's another, I guess, insurance policy for the installer, is that
Yep.
before I install this, and heaven forbid it gets hard and it didn't go in right and it didn't cure right, now I'm looking at maybe a total pipe replacement or having to do a dig up. And
yes,
there goes all your profitability out the window. And so
absolutely.
I think that advantage of UV, that's one of the things that I have found most fascinating about it, is being able to know before you start that curing process. And it really does eliminate so much of that risk for the installer. And we all know, what's that statement? There's no such thing as a perfect project except the one that hasn't begun yet.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and the nice thing for our system, so again, we were talking about cameras on there. So our system has a forward camera, so you can watch the inversion process go in. So you can see that liner head, that LED head go all the way in, and you can you can inspect the liner as you're installing that LED head, because that's the last thing that it goes in as you're there. The second thing that we have is we actually have a camera that faces backwards. So as you start the curing process, you're able to watch backwards on the camera, and it's about 12 inches behind the LED head, and you can see about another 2 feet. So if there is an issue, you do see a big fold, you can actually stop. Maybe you increase the pressure to kind of press that wrinkle out. You can stop that. The other benefit is that's huge for guys is reinstatements. So a lot of these projects, especially if you're doing stuff in vertical stacks, you've got branch connections that come in. So you can see on my background, you can actually see the vertical stack here. And you can see, you've got the sinks coming onto that stack. You've got the toilets. You've got the tubs. So you've got those reinstatements that you're going to have to go back and do. So when you're looking back on the camera with the Bravo liner, you'll see it's notorious for having a really nice dimple. But you're able to see that. So one, that allows you to see if they're, where those marks are. The second thing is we've added on to that is, so we took it, again, one more step further, is we added something called a turtle function. So typically, I'll use 4 inches as an example. 4-inch liner, we're curing at about 2 feet a minute. So you're watching on the camera. You can see it's pulling back at about 2 feet a minute. You see that dimple. All right, I know that's a branch connection. let me press the turtle button. Again, it's a picture of a turtle on the touchscreen. Press that turtle button. It'll slow that retraction speed down to about a third to a foot a minute. So it pulls back quite significantly slower. The reason for that is which, again, going back to traditional methods, that resin cures no matter what you do. It just takes time. So when you're reinstating, there's going to be resin that migrates up into that branch connection because you're introducing pressure, so that resin goes up a little bit. With light curing, if it doesn't touch the light, it doesn't cure. So as you're pulling that back, you press that turtle function, it slows that light retraction back, which allows the light more time to penetrate deeper into that resin slug. So when you're going back and cutting later, you're not cutting into uncured resin, which is a nightmare because you have to clean that off. You're cutting into hard resin or much harder resin, which allows you cut faster. So it's not only the time saving, you're spending a little bit more time curing, but you're saving a whole lot of time coming on the back end when you're coming back to cut. So again, that's where that reversible camera really benefits you. So you can watch the liner go all the way out on the forward-facing camera, and you can watch the LED head come all the way back on the reverse camera.
That is a brilliant addition. Again, I mean, you've really, that was the one thing that really intrigued me when I saw the unit, is how much thought has gone into designing this for the benefit of the installer to reduce as many issues that they're going to encounter, not just during installation, but as you were saying, for the reinstatement afterward. Yep. And so for those of you who might be listening, this was kind of an important thing that I wanted to bring up, that they're thinking, maybe I should get into this. One of the things that intrigued me about this system that I have not seen in others, and many of you know, I've been around the industry for a while and looking at all these new units that have been coming onto the market, was that you're a contractor. You're dipping your toe in. You've got a lot of things going for, let's say, 2 to maybe 6 inch. So you buy a unit that does that, and it does it well. Now, all of a sudden, word is getting out about what you're able to do. And now you've got additional clients that are approaching you about, well, hey, what about larger lines? What about 8 inch? What about 12 inch? What about things maybe you haven't been doing, you've been doing house laterals, but you haven't been doing the building stacks, the verticals. What about a larger unit? Oh, well, you hear from a vendor, well, yeah, we could do that. Or maybe you have to go to a different technology for that. Or you have to buy a completely different unit or a secondary unit from that same manufacturer to do that next type of application. What I thought was fascinating about your design was that as you want to grow, the system can grow with you without having to replace the whole thing. So tell us a little bit about that if you start out with a small system, what if you wanted to get into larger diameter lines, what would you need to add on?
Sure. So our system, it comes with 2 different heads. So the first one is the traditional head that the majority of guys who, when they're starting out in the system, would get. So that's our nano head, and that'll do 3 inch to 8 inch lines. So it will do an 8 inch. It just goes slower. So basically, the system recognizes it's all touch screen, and it's all you're not doing any math, which is great, especially for me because I'm not great at math. So basically, all you do on the system is you type in the type of liner that you put in the type of liner you use, and it's literally selectable. So, for example, you would select, if you're doing something in 3 to 4 inch, you select Bravo 3D, DN 70 to 100, which is 3 inch to 4 inch. And then you're starting in 4 inch, and as you're retracting back, it finishes in 3 inch. So you're starting out, you select DN 100 as a pipe diameter. When you get past that transition, you can actually switch it. The system, again, you can press the button and change it so it retracts faster back in smaller diameter pipe. What you're able to do with our system is the heads are swappable, and the machine recognizes that you're swapping it. So it recognizes you're using a different size head. So let's say you're a contractor right now, you're doing 4 and 6, which is typically what a house lateral is in the United States. So that's your primary business. That's, then you get a call from, a Walmart or something like that may have an 8-inch, and you've got one job. It's like, okay, let me just use the nano head. I'll just plan the time to do the 8-inch pipe, and it's just going to take a little bit longer. Well, you do a fantastic job. Walmart loves you. Word gets out. It's like, hey, in my town, there's a bunch of different projects. Well, now I've got a bunch of 8-inch projects now. Maybe it makes sense for me to get something that I can do faster, because obviously productivity and time is money, right?
Money, right.
So we have a head. So you could get the mega head. It's just literally, just a light head, and it's 4 screws to take that head off and to put it back on. And you just line up the pins, push it on gently, put the 4 screws back in. The machine goes, I can see you are now using the mega head in 8-inch pipe. Rather than retracting at half a foot a minute, you can retract it 3 feet a minute. So it'll pull back faster. Or you get a job where I've got a 10-inch project. Well, I want to do this project because I'm going to get, they're making it worth my while, but it's not enough where I'm going to pay $100,000 for a new system or whatever it is. But it might be worth it to build in the price for this head, where the head is about 16,000 euros. So it's significantly less. And again, the system keeps track of all of this information. So, for example, one of your guys drops the light head. Well, a guy in the next town over, or let's say you're living in South Florida. We've got a few systems in South Florida. You've got a project in South Florida that you're doing. Guy drops the head. Crap. What am I going to do? Well, there's a couple of different options. One is, if you have somebody who has our system as well, you can call them and say, hey, are you using your system? Can I use the head? So rather than having to bring the whole system over to you, they can, you can run over, some guy can grab the head and basically plug it into the system. Again, 4 screws to take it out, put it back on, 4 screws to put it back in. So it allows you to work with that. And it also, again, keeps track of all those hours on the head before you need maintenance. So you're able to tell which head is which. The other option is, and what makes it really great is, and I would say the majority of people that have an issue with UV systems, is that light head, because again, it is a bit more, it's electronics in there. So if you have an issue and you're like, crap, I have a project, that light head, instead of sending the whole system back to our service center, you can call them and say, hey, I have a light head down. Can you guys overnight me a new light head? And I can overnight you the light head back. Or you've completely destroyed the light head. I need to buy a new one. They can overnight you the light head. And again, 4 screws off, 4 screws back on, and you're back up and running. So it allows you not only to grow with the system, where you can go from a nano head to a mega head, depending on the project that you have, if somebody makes it worth a while, but it also allows you to, if you need to, swap out those heads in an emergency for repairs and things like that.
Right. Well, that leads me to, probably one of the most important questions. I'm sure if there's a contractor listening thinking, oh man, this sounds pretty good, I think I want to explore this. The big question is going to be, all right, we all know great equipment and innovation comes out of Europe, Germany, especially their electronics, their cameras, whatnot. Come on, that's where the UV started, was in Europe.
Yep.
But the biggest question in the United States with most people is, all right, I love this equipment. I'm getting it from overseas. What about spare parts? And what about after sales support and service? And I think before you did this, you really thought about knowing how critical that was going to be for your customer base here. And so I commend you as a company doing this. So I want you to share what clients in the US can be expected, because you did do the homework and you established a service network before you even started marketing this product into the US, knowing that that was going to be a critical thing. So what do they need to know about your US operations?
Absolutely. So we have 3 distributors in the United States that are nationwide. And then we have 1 service center. So the service center is Apex CIPP out of Sarasota, Florida. I think if anybody who knows is in this industry, they know Craig Underwood. I mean, he's made his name for himself as the Dan Cutter guys. They stock our liner, they stock resin. I think a lot of guys have met Walter, who's their operations manager, and he's also their trainer. So, for example, if you guys did end up if somebody did end up getting a Bravo system, You've got a couple of different options. Number one is you could go down to Sarasota for on-site training with Walter. And we know his name. There's nobody, it's nothing special in terms of like, there's no hiding anything. So he's able to train the guys on site. He also goes out in the field, as do I. So I'm based in Maryland. I travel probably more than my wife likes, but I travel quite a bit. So, if you have something where it's like, hey, I've got a special project that, hey, this is really critical, Andrew, I need somebody on site. Can you come out and be on site, do some training with us, do a refresher training. Also, you can go down to Sarasota, or Sarasota can come to you, as I say. The other nice thing is Apex CIPP, again, they invested in us as much as we invested in them. So they sent 2 guys over to Germany to learn from A to Z how to repair this system. So they are able to repair the light heads. They were able to repair the hose reel. We actually had one guy who accidentally broke his touchscreen last week. So they're actually going to be repairing that touchscreen. So we're sending them a touchscreen. They're repairing it in Sarasota and sending it back. So there's no sending all this stuff back to Germany, which obviously we know, unfortunately, does take some time. And now with the new, potential tariffs and things like that, that also could play a factor into it. No mention on politics either way, but so that is repaired in the United. You are able to get this repaired in the United States. You're also able to get training in the United States, on-site sales support as well. So I joke, I work. I have no hours. I'm basically on call. So if you call me on the weekend, I'm probably going to answer, because you're not calling me on the weekend to see how my weekend's going. There's a problem. So that's, again, same time zone. I'm on the Eastern time zone, but again, it's worst case, it's a 3-hour time zone change. So you're able to get that not only immediate technical support from our partners. So we have one in Sarasota who's on the East Coast. We have one in Michigan who's they're still Eastern time zone, but Central time. And then we have one out of Texas. So again, Central time. So you're able to get a hold of somebody pretty much at any time that you need if there is something that goes wrong. And then you're able to get repair facilities, training, things like that, again, relatively quickly. We had a customer up in Canada who bought our system, actually up in Edmonton in December. And he said, I've got 3 jobs. I need somebody on site next week. And I was there next week. So that's also part of it as well. So, ideally, I'd like you to give me a little bit of heads up. But if there is emergencies, if there are problems, we are able to get out there quickly to service. So it's not just coming out of Europe. It is in the US as well.
That's great that you have that kind of support for customers. So if they're interested in learning more, or how they can get involved, or maybe seeing a demo of the system, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can reach out you can go on our website, which is bravosystems-usa.com, or you can go on bravosystems.com and there's a drop down. So we have a special website just for the United States, which is really great because we have a lot of stuff that's in Imperial. Again, being a European company, all of our stuff is traditionally in metric. We have started to adapt to the United States, and to an extent, in terms of, we give you what the pounds per foot for resin that you need, as opposed to just kilos per meter. So, there's no less conversion. So again, most guys will be able to do it. We all have calculators in our pockets now that can do it, but it's nice to be able to download that. Again, all of our information on there is available, free of charge. So we have downloads for safety data sheets, technical data on our liners, on our resins, static values. And then we also provided, it's jokingly, we call it the Bible. It's a step-by-step process. We have one for ambient and hot curing resin, and then we have one for UV, where it's an 85 to 120 page step-by-step. This is how you do a lining job. You can do it open-ended, close-end, how you do it with an end cap, all of those things. And again, you can go on our website now and download that with no issues. So you're able to kind of review it there. We have tutorial videos on there as well. So bravosystems.com or bravosystems-usa.com. You can email me. I'll give you my email address, Susan. It's andrew.marshall@bravosystems.com. My cell phone number is on there as well. happy to give that out. It's, again, 240-796-5007. Please give me a call if you have questions. I'm happy to help. I'm here to support you guys. So feel free to reach out if you need it.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate you being on the show today. And for those of you tuning in, hope you got something out of this, and maybe you'll reach out to Andrew to learn more about this fabulous new technology for our industry. And thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're ready to take your marketing to the next level and start increasing sales and opportunities for your business, reach out to us at Creative Raven. We're here to help you thrive in the digital landscape. Visit creativeraven.com or click the link in the show notes below to schedule a call and learn how we can support your growth. If you enjoyed the insights on today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you'll never miss an update. Until next time, keep growing and keep it flowing.